Scoliosis in black and white. I'm Dr. James Petrick with Prior Lake Spinal Care, and I want to share a story with you about idiopathic scoliosis that started about 30 years ago. When this boy was in the 8th grade, he lined up at the middle school swimming pool, and the school nurse came by and checked everybody's spines for scoliosis. It was found that this young man had scoliosis, so he was sent home with a note to give to his parents so that they could be aware of it. Now, within about 10 months, just before freshman football season, he was up north water skiing. He ripped around the lake a couple of times, and as he got back into the boat, he felt this cramping discomfort coming from right between his shoulder blades, a little bit off to the right-hand side. He thought maybe it's because of the wind. He was in the boat, he was still wet, and the wind was blowing on him. He was shivering a little bit. He thought, oh, I'm just cramping up. It'll get better once I get to shore. Now, when he got to dry land and warmed up, he experimented by doing a couple of football-type maneuvers in the backyard of the cabin. And unfortunately, that knife-like pain seemed to jab farther and farther in each time he did it. He thought, maybe I pulled a muscle. This is my first time out water skiing of the summer, and it'll probably be better in the morning. Unfortunately, it was the same story. Every maneuver, pretending that he was out on the football field, making a football type of a maneuver, caused that knife-like pain to spike and almost like it was being twisted in a little bit each time. Football season was really painful, and his parents were concerned about it, and they remembered the note of referral from the school nurse, so they decided to take him to the doctor and have him further checked for the scoliosis problem. Then he was referred to the Twin Cities Spine Center for a further look. They took a single view standing x-ray of him from front to back, from the top of his head all the way down to the bottom of his pelvis, and he was shocked to see just how crooked his spine was. They said, not to worry, let's keep on monitoring it. Come in and get re-x-rayed every 6 months so we can monitor the progression of your curve. As long as it doesn't get too close to 40 degrees in your mid-back, then you should be in the clear. So keep on playing sports. Nothing really necessary to do in addition to being monitored here to see if potentially you get to the point that you might need to have surgery. Not only was his back pain and his progressing scoliosis affecting his athletic ability, it was also affecting his concentration in the classroom. He couldn't sit upright for more than a couple of minutes at a time without shifting and just trying to find a comfortable position, constantly needing to refocus and recalibrate his mind just to pay attention to the teacher. Shortly after high school, he took the advice of his father and a friend and decided to get checked by a chiropractor. The chiropractor did help with the pain between his shoulder blades and his mid-back off to the right-hand side in the area of that primary curve. And so you know what? He decided that he wanted to make a career out of chiropractic so he could help other people with scoliosis. Now, in the first trimester of chiropractic college, he had another full spine x-ray taken, which he hadn't had in a few years. The chiropractor that he had gone to had taken sectional views and then pieced them together to analyze them. And so he was shocked to find on this new full spine x-ray that the primary curve in his mid-back, the area of his discomfort, of his main knife-like pain, had gotten into the upper 40-degree range. And he was shocked because not only was it way beyond 40 degrees, but his chiropractor had said that although his curves weren't improving a whole lot, they were at least not getting any worse, and that since he was done growing, he should be all in the clear. Now, how do I have such a vivid memory of these details? Because I'm actually talking about me. As you can see, I'm a lot skinnier with a slight turn in from the left side versus over here from the right. That's why I stand over on this side of the screen. And when I bend down, you can see my nice bump right between my shoulder blades. Now, I'm better than I used to be. I used to stand sort of compressed like this. At least the top of me is well positioned over the bottom. Now, there are a lot of different theories out there on how to best treat idiopathic scoliosis. Some people do need the invasive Harrington rod surgery. Some people might benefit from orthotic bracing, more often not than being the case. physical therapy, yoga, stretching, and of course chiropractic. Now in chiropractic college, I was amazed at how many different ways there were for treating the spine. So I had the muscle stimulation, electrodes stuck to my spine to try to contract and relax different muscle groups. I had the table where they stretch you out this way end to end. I was seeing different chiropractors in private practice, out in the field. Of course, the people on campus were doing their best to help me, but nothing was really helping. And in addition, not only was my curve getting worse to this point, I was also starting to have that knife-like pain in the lower left side of my low back, where that curve was progressing. But then, as fate would have it, I was playing some football with some friends, and I actually broke my wrist. I don't know if you can see that scar right in through there. And anyways, after the surgery, my wrist still wasn't quite the same. And I couldn't do high velocity traditional types of chiropractic adjustments anymore. I needed to find something that was going to be gentle on my own wrist. I was halfway through chiropractic college, my curves were getting worse to this point, and I got a broken wrist. And so it was not a happy time. But you know what? It forced me to come to an epiphany. It forced me to look at the spine and think differently. So I was literally in my bedroom off of 82nd Street and Penn Avenue there in Bloomington next to the chiropractic college. And I walk up to my plastic model spine and I'm about to say, what in the world is wrong with my spinal column? However, I could not get the word column to come from my lips. Spinal and right there I froze, and that's where the epiphany started. I realized that, hey, the spine is not a column. My spine certainly isn't a column. It's crooked. I have curves from the side, as you should have, curve from the side in the neck, a curve in the mid-back that goes like this, and then another curve in the lower back that goes like this. My spine certainly wasn't a column, and nobody's spine is a column. Columns don't have to bend down to tie their shoes, put toddlers into car seats, and haul luggage through busy airports. That's a terrible way of viewing the spine. And I had to sort of think like an engineer. Not because I was a curious chiropractic student, because my spine was getting worse, I didn't want surgery, and I had to sort of start thinking about my problem differently. And so what I realized is that the spine is actually a tensegral, or a tension-based structure, kind of like a suspensory bridge, where when there's stress in one area, it actually will automatically dissipate that tension throughout the entire system. Now, if you typed in to Google Documents or probably even Word, Microsoft Word, the word tensegral, it would probably underline it in red and not have any suggestions. It's that rare. However, that is the design framework from an engineering perspective of your actual spine. It's not a spinal column, and that's the first key to understanding how to get better naturally, to get out in front of the curves and to potentially even improve them with as little invasiveness as possible. Now, as I was doing my research, I came across this study that talked about how rabbits, when there was injury made to the upper brainstem area, these critters, in about 50% of cases, even though they're walking around horizontal to gravity, would develop scoliosis. And the idea was that if the brain had conflicting or confusing information coming up, then the muscles had to compensate or adapt for that abnormal postural information coming up, which is all modulated in the upper part of the brainstem. And I thought that was pretty cool. I'm going to look into some chiropractic methodology that deals specifically in that area of the spine. Maybe something is being overlooked. And when I went to my first chiropractor that does the type of work that I do now, when he walked into the room, and he said that my C1, or the top bone in my spine, called Atlas from Greek mythology, was that titan that held the world on his shoulders. You might have seen a statue like that before. So your world is your head, is your brain, is your skull, and that's about a 13-pound bowling ball that has to balance on top of that little 2-ounce atlas vertebra. Anyways, he said that my C1, my atlas vertebra, was actually slipped out to the right. And I said, are you sure about that? Because every chiropractor has said that my C1 has slipped out to the left. And in fact, you can feel the tip of that vertebra right there, called the transverse process, sticking out right there. You can feel it over there. You can't feel it over here. And he said, in our work, not only are we measuring the misalignment from the front and from the side, we're also looking from underneath or from the top. And it's not just about measuring angles. It's also about the geometry. The geometry, that's very, very important. That's very, very overlooked. There's 3 things that I want you to get out of this. Scoliosis in black and white. And of course, refer this video to your friends that are searching for answers. Scoliosis is a very scary thing, especially if you have a teenage daughter or son that's been recently diagnosed and it's getting worse. They have cosmetic concerns. They have athletic concerns. They have paying attention in class concerns for all the different reasons that we talked about. The things that I want you to understand are, number 1, the spine is not a column. Number 2, your ability to get better naturally has everything to do with your resilience. Now you might be thinking, okay, the ability to overcome adversity, that's a cool word, resilience. I'm always for the underdog in the movie. I like that word. But that's not what I'm talking about. Resilience, the second definition of resilience, means your ability to come back to neutral after being bent, stretched, or compressed. And isn't that exactly what scoliosis is? There's a primary curve, and that's not very efficient, so the spine will stretch and sort of compensate to come back to vertical, but that's not very efficient, and so then we carry the load by this rotation. Sometimes they call it rotatory scoliosis. And even here in the mid-back, you can see that when one vertebra is slightly pushed, since they're interconnecting segments, they actually change the alignment of the vertebra immediately above and below. So with scoliosis, of course, you're not dealing with 24 randomly non-related, coincidental, unrelated misalignments of 24 vertebrae. No, they're all working together to offset some neurological problem, either downstream or upstream. Think about a rope or anything that can possibly unravel. It always does so relative to the ends. In the human spine suspensory system, it usually unravels relative to the top. Now, the third thing that I want you to keep in mind is that muscles do not have a mind of their own. People ask me, why are my muscles tight over here? We're in scoliosis. Why am I tight over here, and then I'm tight over here, and it's like my spine is kind of playing tug of war. What's that all about? To which I respond, muscles do not have a mind of their own. The brain is telling them to be tight because that's the only way that you have of holding the line against gravity so that you don't further compress and allow even more injury to your spine. The muscles are your friends. So I am never going to walk into a treatment room for a person's appointment and say, yeah, you know, that's not a good thing. That muscle is tight. We need to get that muscle to relax. I am smarter than your DNA, your innate, inherent, the information code of your cells that can stretch end to end to end to end. If you line them all up, do you know what they would stretch to the sun and back 61 times? That's a lot smarter than I am. In fact, all the books that all the doctors have ever read for all time, you stack them up end to end to end, cannot hold a candle against your own DNA. Your brain, your nervous system is as complicated as the entire internet. So those tight muscles are there for a reason, and we have to say the most valuable thing probably in idiopathic scoliosis is to say, why are those muscles tight? Why are those vertebrae out of balance? After doing this work for 20 years and the results that I've received as a patient, going to my chiropractor who specializes in this exact work that I've dedicated my life to has been the single best thing that I've done for my health. And I want you to benefit from it as well. You've heard some of my stories. I want to hear yours. I want to find out, how resilient is your spine? I'm Dr. James Petrick with Prior Lake Spinal Care. This has been Scoliosis in black and white. Stay ahead of the curve, and I'll talk to you soon.